Hey guys, what is up? JLuz here, and in this video, I'm going to show you how to create this photo manipulation that I call man-eating skull. I'm gonna walk you through it step by step, and I hope you're going to learn from this tutorial. So without further ado, let's get into it. First, let's create a new document, so let's head over to File, let's click on New, and let's rename this one to man-eating skull. So these are the sizes for the canvas here. Width of 1500, a height of 2000, and I'm gonna choose pixels for this one, and we're gonna give it 150 pixels per inch for the resolution, and then just simply click create. Okay, so now let's press Ctrl R, and it's gonna show a ruler above and on the left side of our canvas. So we're just gonna set up our guides so that we can have a better angle at where we will put our skull. So I'm gonna set this one on 2 inches over here, and I'm gonna drag another one and put it on 12.5 inches. So now we can start dragging the images that we're going to use. So the first one is, of course, we have our skull image. So we're just gonna drag this one over here. Okay, so now we can use a pen tool. Just press P on your keyboard, and we're just gonna create a selection in this skull image. So when using a pencil, just try to draw the lines inside your image just like this, so that you can have a clean edge after duplicating it without those white edges. Okay, so now right click, make selection, and I'm gonna change this one to 0. And just press OK. And I want to remove this part over here, so we're just going to use a pencil again and just create another selection. Okay, so now right click here, make selection, and we're going to choose subtract from selection so that it's going to deduct from the existing selection that we have, and then just press OK. Okay, so now we can press Ctrl J on this one and duplicate the selection. Right click here and convert this one to a smart object so that we can preserve the details whenever we want to make it smaller or we want to make it bigger. So now we just have to simply drag this one over to our canvas. Okay, so now press Ctrl T, and we're just gonna match the top part and the bottom part of our skull image to the guides that we just put. So this is going to be here, and we're just gonna drag the bottom part. There you go. And we're just gonna drag this one over here. Okay, so now we're just gonna drag our second image that we're going to use, which is the man over here. So we're just going to drag this one, and for this time we're going to use select subject feature of Photoshop. So just go to select, and we're going to choose subject. Okay, so Photoshop is going to automatically create a selection around our subject here, and we just need to fix some of its selection. So we're gonna add this one over here, so just press the Alt key on your keyboard to choose the lasso tool, or just go to the toolbar, and then we're going to add this one here. So just hold the shift key, and it's gonna show this plus sign, and just simply create a selection around this area over here, and it's going to add to the existing selection. Now if you want to deduct from the existing selection, just hold the Alt key, and it's gonna show this minus sign over here, and just simply draw the line like this, and it's going to deduct from the existing selection. Now it's okay not to have an accurate selection on the hair over here, since this part here is going to be covered by the skull. So just simply press Ctrl J on your keyboard to duplicate the selection, right click on this one and convert to smart object, and just click the move tool here, and we're just going to simply drag this one to our canvas. Okay, so now press Ctrl T, and we're just going to flip this one vertically. So right click and choose flip vertical, and we're gonna rotate this one just like this, and we're going to put the man over here like it's being eaten by the skull. Okay, so now let's press the check mark to confirm the transformation, and now let's create a clipping mask, And we're gonna use a brush tool, so just press B or just select the brush tool here in the toolbar. And we're going to use a hard round brush for this one. We're going to increase the flow to 100%, and we're going to use a black foreground. So if you want to erase an image in a layer mask, so you need to use a black foreground and just erase like this. So if you want to add something back, just press X or just click this icon over here, and it's gonna change the foreground to white, and just simply paint over to paint back those image. So now we need a black foreground, so just press X, and we're going to erase this part over here. We can also decrease the opacity so that we can have a better view on which parts should be erased. Okay, so I think this one is already good. There you go. Okay, so now let's rename this one to man and this one to skull. Now press Ctrl G on the skull layer here, just like this. And we can also remove the guides since we already have the skull in position. Okay, so now we're going to use this mountain over here, and we're going to use it as an overlay for our skull image so that it will look like the skull here is really old. So we're just gonna use the lasso tool, so just press L, and we're going to create a selection around in this mountain. Okay, so after creating a selection, let's head over to select, and we're going to choose select and mask. We're just going to increase the radius here to reveal more of the edge of our mountain. So I think 40 pixels will do, and just press OK. And now press Ctrl J here to duplicate the selection. Right click here and convert to smart object, and then just click the move tool or press V on your keyboard, and we're just going to simply drag this one over here. Okay, so now create a clipping mask, so just hold the Alt key and click in between these two layers to create a clipping mask. There you go. And now let's change the blending mode from normal to darker color so that it's gonna reveal the dark parts of our skull image. And then we could just press Ctrl T, and we're going to match our size of our skull here. So you can also hold the shift key to drag only one point of the transform, just like this. Okay, now click on the move tool, and then we're going to use blend if on this layer here to remove those mountain parts that are in the light areas of our skull. So just double click on the right side of the layer, and it's gonna pop up this dialog box. And in the underlying layer, let's hold the Alt key in our keyboard to separate these two sliders, and we're just going to drag this one to the left side. And see, it disperses our mountain image and remove those parts that are in the bright areas of our skull. Okay, so I think I'm gonna go with 100 on this one, and whenever you're satisfied, just press OK. Okay, so now let's try to match the brightness of our mountain image here to the brightness of our skull. So just double click on this layer here, and it's gonna show up a separate layer or separate document. So we're just gonna simply add an adjustment layer. So let's go to adjustment layer icon. Let's add brightness or contrast adjustment layer. Let's create a clipping mask, and we're going to increase the brightness to about 60. And we're going to use another blend if for this one, so just double click on the right side here. And this time we're going to use the left slider for the shadows. So just hold the Alt key to separate the slider, and we're just going to reduce the overall brightness in those dark areas. So I think 120 will do, and then just press OK. Okay, so after that, we're just going to have to close this one, and we're going to save the changes. So just press yes, and it's gonna apply to the mountain over here. So if you aren't satisfied with the result, you can always go back and double click here, double click on the adjustment layer, and just change slider here for whichever you like. Okay, so I'm just gonna save this one. There you go. Okay, so now let's just hide these guides here. So just press Ctrl R, and then I'm gonna reposition this mountain overlay here. So just press Ctrl T, and I'm gonna drag this over here. I think this one will do, and then just hold the shift key to drag only one side of the image, just like this. And I'm gonna put it to somewhere over here. Okay, so the light source here is going to be on this somewhere on this area here, so that's why we have the highlights or the bright areas on this area of the skull. So I just want to make this one less darker, so let's add another adjustment layer. Let's choose brightness. Let's create a clipping mask, and I'm gonna add a brightness of about 15. Okay, so I think we're going to make our man smaller, so we're going to head over to our man. So let's select our man layer. Let's press Ctrl T, and I'm just gonna make this one slightly smaller. There you go. And we're going to choose the layer mask here. Let's use a brush tool, and with a white foreground, let's just press this icon here. We're just gonna try to paint back those part of the image just like this. Okay, so now I think it's time to drag our background for this one. So let's drag this over here. There you go. And we're going to drag this one under our skull layer. Press Ctrl T, and we're just going to make this one larger. And I'm going to match this shadow here and put it somewhere in this area to make it look like it's a shadow of our skull image. Okay, I think this one is perfect, and then just press the check mark to confirm the transformation. Okay, so now I think we're going to rotate this one a little bit, so just press Ctrl T, and we're going to slightly rotate this one, and then click the check mark once again. Okay, so now it's time to head over to our skull image, this one over here. We're going to use a layer mask, and let's choose a grass brush for this one. So I'm also going to put the links of these images in the description down below, as well as this grass Photoshop brush. And we're going to use number 2 for this one. We're just going to make this one smaller, so you can just hold the Alt key in our keyboard and just drag right or left to make your brush or to adjust the brush size. And of course, in a layer mask, we need a black foreground to erase. And I'm just gonna slightly lower our flow. So I think 80% will do. Just by doing this enables us to merge or to blend our skull image and our background. Now I'm just gonna rename this one to skull. And I'm also gonna make some adjustments to our background, so I'm gonna press Ctrl G to group this one. Okay, so let's rename this one to background, and it's time to add some depth to our background. So let's head over to filter, let's select blur gallery and choose tilt shift. So in here, I'm just gonna drag this point here. So this line here is basically where the blur will start, so I'm just gonna drag this one here. And the second part, this is where the blurriest part will start, so I think this one here will do. So the background will be very blur, and also for our background on the bottom part here. Okay, so I think this will do. You can also adjust the amount of blur by just dragging this slider over here. So I think 15 will do, and then just press OK. Okay, so now it's time to make some changes to our background, such as the colors and the brightness. So first, since our light source is in the right side over here, we need to add some brightness on this area of the grass. So let's click on the adjustment layer icon. Let's choose brightness, and let's create a clipping mask. And we're gonna drag this one to, I think, 60 will do. And then press Ctrl I to invert the layer mask. Let's choose a brush tool, and we're going to use a white foreground for this one. And I'm gonna select a soft round brush, and we're going to increase this part here, or increase the brightness on this part here, just like this. And we're going to use blend if on this one, so double click on the right side, and we're just going to decrease the overall brightness to those dark areas. So just hold the Alt key and drag this slider over here. So I think 80 or 70 will do, and then just press OK. Now it's time to add some saturation on our grass. So let's choose adjustment layer icon again. This time we're going to choose hue or saturation. Let's create a clipping mask, and we're gonna drag the saturation to about 20. After that, we're going to add a curves adjustment layer. So let's go over here. Let's choose the curves. Let's create a clipping mask, and I want our grass here to be a little bit reddish. So let's head over to the red curve, and we're just going to drag this one to the left side until it's halfway through this square over here. Okay, so I only want this adjustment layer to affect the grass, so we need to delete this part here. So just press B for the brush tool, and let's select a black foreground, and we're just going to simply erase this part here of the adjustment layer. Okay, I think this is okay, and now it's time to color correct our sky. So let's add another adjustment layer. Let's choose hue or saturation. Let's create a clipping mask, and let's check on colorize here, and I want to give it a teal color. So let's head over to, I think 185 will do, and I'm just going to increase the saturation a bit more. So I think 35 will do for this one, and then we're just going to do the same thing. So just press the B or just select the brush tool in the toolbar. Of course, select a black foreground, and we're just going to erase this part over here. There you go. Now I think we are done with our background, so let's rename this one to background. Okay, so I think we need to reposition our skull here together with the man image. So we're just gonna select the skull group and hold the control key on our keyboard and select the man layer, and then we're just gonna simply drag this one over here just to match the angle of our shadow. Since our light source is from this area, then it is understandable that the shadow is somewhere on this part and not straight on the skull image. So I think you get what I mean here. So now it's time to group our man layer, since we need some adjustment also. So just press Ctrl G on your keyboard, and we're gonna rename this one to man. Okay, so now let's select our man layer, and we need this part to be darker since it is inside the skull. So we need to have an adjustment layer, a brightness or contrast. Let's create a clipping mask, and we're gonna reduce the brightness all the way to -150, and then just press Ctrl I to invert the layer mask. Let's use a brush tool, and let's use a white foreground and soft round brush, and I think I'm gonna lower the flow to about 14%, and then we're just gonna darken this part over here, also this part a little bit here. And since the light source is over in this area, we need to increase the brightness of the man's shirt. So let's add another adjustment layer. Let's use brightness, and let's create a clipping mask, and let's adjust the brightness. I think 60 will do for this one. So now just press Ctrl I to invert the layer mask. Let's use a brush tool, a white foreground, and just remember to use a soft round brush so that it creates a better and smoother transition. And then I'm just gonna lower the flow to about 4%, and we're just gonna simply add some brightness on this area over here. Okay, so this is the before, and this one is the after. So just play around with the adjustment layers, and just try to use the adjustment layers that best suit your needs. Okay, so now I think it's time to put some rocks falling from the upper part of the skull, just to make an impression that our skull just opened its mouth to devour the man. So let's just duplicate this skull layer here. So just hold the Alt key and duplicate so that you can have a copy in case something goes wrong with the original layer. So now head over to your first layer, right click and convert this one to a smart object, right click again and choose rasterize layer. Now let's use a clone stamp tool by pressing S, or just select clone stamp tool in the toolbar. And we're going to use a hard round brush for this one, and a flow and opacity of 100%. So we're just gonna sample some parts here to make our rocks. So just hold the Alt key like this, and we're just gonna paint on something like this that is like falling from the upper part of our skull. You can also make smaller ones just like this, and just try to be creative in making those rocks. And since this part here should be darker, so let's sample this part here. So just hold the Alt key and click on this layer here, and it's gonna sample that part, and it's gonna paint over in this area just like this. Just try to be creative and add some more rocks if you want to. Okay, so I think we are done here. We just have to add some brightness in our man layer. So let's open our group. Let's head over here. So this is the brightness layer. So just press the B for the brush tool, and we're just gonna add some brightness on this part and also over here. Okay, so I think we need to make our skull a little bit more grungy. So let's head over to the mountain overlay here, and let's open up the blend if option, and then we're just gonna drag this slider to the right side just to make it more grungy. So just drag this one over here, and I think I'm gonna give it 140 for this one, and then just press OK. And then we're just going to create a layer mask over here, and we're just going to create a smooth transition here. So we're going to use a brush tool, and we're going to use a black foreground to erase this part. And I'm just gonna lower the flow, so just slowly erase this part here to make a smoother transition. And now we need to add some shadow here for the man. So let's just head over to adjustment layer icon, and let's add levels. Let's create a clipping mask and drag this one to the left side. I think 65 will do, and then just press Ctrl I to invert the layer mask. Let's choose a brush tool, and of course with a white foreground, let's paint in some shadow down below our man. Okay, so now I think it's time to add the camera raw filter. So let's click the uppermost layer. Let's press Ctrl Alt Shift E at the same time to create a merge layer of all the layers. Right click and convert this one to a smart object. Now let's head over to filter, and let's add a camera raw filter. So from this one, you can add or you can change any settings you want based on your preference. So I'm just gonna show you the settings that I did in my photo manipulation here. So basically I added a tint just to give it a more reddish effect. So I also added some highlights, some shadows, and darkened those shadows more by giving it a -20, and the texture of 20, and just a subtle clarity for this one, so I give it a 5. And for the color mixer, so let's head over to the hue. So I want it to hourglass to have a more reddish effect, so a 60 will do. And just to make it more reddish, so a -60 will do for the orange, and for the aqua is -50. For the saturation, I only did for the aqua just to make it more teal color, so a 50 plus will do. And then for the aquas, a +50 will do also. And lastly, for the color grading, for the highlights, I just drag this one to the green part just to make the overall photo manipulation result a little bit greenish and make the images blend more. Whenever you're satisfied, just press OK. Okay, so we are done with our Photoshop photo manipulation for today. So I hope you've learned something from this tutorial, and if you do, hit that like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and click that bell icon to get notified whenever I upload a new content. Thank you so much for watching, and see you on my next video.